am Dr. Elena Reyes, a botanist. I study life. But on one remote, unnamed island, I discovered that the forest was not just alive, it was thinking. The trees didn't grow from simple seeds. They grew from small, engraved wooden blocks, and every leaf, every branch, contained the entire, forgotten history of a lost civilization. This wasn't a forest, it was the world's first living library, and I was holding the key to read it. My journey began with a single piece of satellite imagery, an island where the plant life showed impossible geometric uniformity. Nature is messy, but this place was perfectly organized. I traveled for weeks to reach this isolated dot in the South Pacific, expecting a unique climate event. What I found was far stranger. The soil was sparse and strange, yet the vegetation, ferns, vines, and tall, silvery trees was unbelievably dense. Then, I made the first critical discovery. I knelt down and brushed away the soil near the base of a tree. Instead of a seed casing or a common root ball, I found a small, polished block of dark wood. It was perfectly smooth, about the size of a matchbox, and covered in tiny, complex, angular symbols. Symbols that looked like writing. I collected several of these blocks, which I immediately nicknamed seeds, and began my research. The mystery deepened quickly. The plants on this island did not reproduce in the normal way. If I took a cutting, it would die. If I planted a regular seed, nothing would grow. The entire ecosystem was dependent only on these carved wooden blocks. I examined a young fern. Its leaves were thick and felt almost synthetic. Under my microscope, the cell structure was not random, it was perfectly patterned. The veins of the leaves were not just for carrying water. They formed intricate, repeating diagrams like circuits or paragraphs of text. "Isabella," I said to my lone communication partner via satellite phone, "the plants here are not just plants. They are behaving like storage devices, like living memory." The civilization that once lived here had found a way to encode all their knowledge, their science, their history, their art into the DNA of the island's flora. I searched the densest part of the forest, the area where the oldest, tallest, silvery trees stood. Their bark was smooth, almost metallic, and the branches crisscrossed high above, forming a perfect cathedral-like dome. In the center of this grove, hidden under a blanket of moss, I found a single structure. It was a simple stone pedestal, and resting on top was a device, a small dark lens with metallic prongs. It was clearly a piece of technology, but it was designed to be powered by the very forest itself. I carefully placed one of the engraved wooden blocks onto the pedestal. The lens began to glow softly, pulling energy from the air. A thin beam of light shot down from the lens onto the block. The symbols on the block shimmered. Then, the light beam didn't reflect off the wood. It went into the wood. Suddenly, I heard sound. Not through the air, but directly in my mind. It was a language, melodic and complex, accompanied by shifting, three-dimensional images projected onto the misty air. I was seeing their history. The lens was the translator. I was reading the DNA of the plants. The island was a giant, encrypted hard drive. The civilization hadn't died out. They had simply uploaded their entire existence into a biological archive, protected by the most remote place on Earth. I spent the next 2 days in the grove, absorbing fragments of their world. I saw their technology, their philosophy, and their final moments. A peaceful, intentional choice to transition their knowledge into this living database rather than risk its destruction. The knowledge I now possessed was immense. I held the genetic blueprints for 1,000 years of science and culture. But the plants were incredibly fragile. One massive storm, one careless fire, or one act of human exploitation could erase the entire library forever. I came here as a scientist, driven by curiosity. Now, I stood as the guardian of the archive. I faced a dilemma, similar to a moral test. Should I take the wooden blocks, the key to their entire existence, and reveal this discovery to the world? That would bring scientists, corporations, and governments destroying the delicate ecosystem in their pursuit of the knowledge. Or should I protect it? Should I leave the key, leave the blocks, and let the library live on, silent and safe, as the civilization intended? I chose the responsibility over the revelation. I copied the information from the translator's lens onto a small, nondescript data chip, just enough information to prove the possibility, but not enough to lead anyone to the island. I replaced the engraved block on the pedestal and covered the translator device with moss. I took one final silent breath of the archive's air. The island is still out there. It is still growing, still living, still archiving. And the greatest library on Earth remains untouched, waiting for a future when knowledge can be sought with respect, not greed. Before you go, remember, this story helped you practice great descriptive language and complex vocabulary. You can find a list of all the new words and what we learned today about English in the video description below. To practice, listen again to master the pronunciation and pacing. Comment below with a new word you learned. If this story helped your English grow, please like this video and subscribe to join the next adventure. Thank you for being the guardian of this discovery.